Please introduce yourself and your position at ISR.
My name is Jael Newman and I'm a grade 4 homeroom teacher.
How long have you been a member of the ISR family?
For almost 2 years now.
What do you enjoy most about teaching grade 4 students?
So first of all, I like teaching elementary students, and this, I guess that's a couple of things. I guess this one goes for most grade levels in a certain way, but in grade 4 I really like that I'm helping students to become more independent, and obviously there are different steps as you go through elementary school, but in grade 4 I ask a little bit more from students already than they would need to do in grade 3, that they take a little bit more responsibility for their own learning. And then I'm really helping them to become that independent, and that they see, okay, if I do this, then the result is that I'm learning something new. So that they ask the right questions and that they are prepared for their next lesson by themselves and so on.
What does a typical day look like in your classroom?
Well, in the morning, the students come in, I say hello, then we have morning homeroom. And during morning homeroom, the first thing the students do is take their planner. So starting in grade 4, they get homework a couple times a week. So in their planner, they will write down what they do throughout the day, but also if they have some homework. And then afterwards, we maybe have a chat about something that's going on, or we catch up on some work. And then throughout the day, they have different lessons, English, maths, and so on. Sometimes a project, sometimes some writing. And at the end of the day, there's another homeroom, so the students will come back to class if they were not there. And they all have their own responsibility to tidy up the class, like organizing the class library or helping set up the board for tomorrow, something like that.
In the multilingual environment of an international school, what strategies do you use to help students develop their English language skills?
That depends a little bit on where they are at in their language learning. So first of all, we have a wonderful EAL team in elementary, and they support us very well. So the students go there for the English lessons, but sometimes during those lessons, the students will also go over some vocabulary from the science lesson, for example. And the EAL team, props to them, they're very great with that, so they help us how they can support us, so that's very nice. And then within the classroom, if it's in my English lessons and the students are still learning English a little bit, then luckily we have quite a lot of time for English on the timetable, so sometimes we go into the vocabulary a little bit more before we start reading a book, or we have a bit more time to go in depth when it comes to grammar. How does that work in the English language? And during other subjects like science and social studies, which is maybe a bit more vocabulary heavy, then usually I sit together with the students that might need a little bit more support, so we work in a smaller group. And obviously students are there to support each other as well. If they don't know something, they can always ask a classmate. Those are kind of the main things, and if something is really difficult and vocabulary heavy, then usually you can have a look, okay, is there something that we need to point out a bit at the start of the lesson, that they understand these words before we move on.
Could you tell us a little bit about the tools and strategies you use to teach English writing in particular?
At least grades 1 to 4, we use a framework called Talk for Writing. And it works like this. We have different units throughout the year where we either focus on a fiction text type or a non-fiction text type. And this unit usually lasts for about 6 weeks. So at the beginning, the students get a cold write, which is a writing task for, let's say, a newspaper report. And then they don't really know that much about it usually. They only use what they've learned from other lessons about different text types. So then they write that. And then afterwards, we start looking, okay, what do the students still need to learn? We look at what a newspaper article in this case looks like, first to read as a reader. So what can I learn from this text? And then later we look at the structure or at different vocabulary that we can use in that text type. And then at the end of the unit, they then write the same writing task they got at the beginning again. And then they will show everything that they've learned, and usually it's very nice to see because the students have learned a lot and they can then be very proud of their work.
How do you help your students when a lesson is challenging?
That depends on the students. Everyone needs a different kind of encouragement or a different kind of support. Generally, the first thing I want the students to realize is that we all have times when we find something difficult. And if you ask for help, if you ask the right questions, someone will always be there to support you. So first, I would really like if the students find someone else in the classroom that can help them. And in one lesson, they might be the one that need help, and in the next lesson, someone else is there that needs support, and then they are the ones that can offer that. Otherwise, usually I work with smaller groups if they find something a little bit more difficult. But generally, when you say students are struggling, it's usually because there's too much coming towards them at the same time. And what I then like to do is just dissect a little bit what it is that we're learning, take everything step by step. Okay, do we understand this? Yes. Okay, then okay. And then there's always an aha moment where students realize, okay, that was what I didn't quite get yet, and then they're good and they can keep going. And that's always very nice, actually, that aha moment, because from then usually the students feel good and they can keep going.
Can you share a writing project that has been particularly successful with your students?
This year we did a writing project on a book called Voices in the Park by Anthony Brown, which is really funny. It's a fiction story. So the students read this book in which 4 people go to the park. Nothing much is going on, but they read the book in 4 different perspectives, like about each of the 4 people that go to the park. And then because of the way that these people think or the emotions that they feel, they see the park very differently. Now in the story there are also 2 dogs, and the task is then for the students to write how would the dog experience this park, what would their perspective be. If they see a statue, how would the dog see that? And that really led to some fun writing in the end, with some very interesting ideas from the students themselves. And reading every single text that they wrote there was quite funny because it ended up being very different for each student.
What are the most important lessons you hope your students will take with them to grade 5?
Ooh, grade 5. There's much more homework, much more independent learning there. So yeah, kind of what we've been working on in grade 4 a little bit already. If you ask the right questions, if you ask for help, and if you keep track of what there is to know what's coming up in the next weeks by writing in your planner, then I think you'll manage.
And finally, if you could write a book about anything, what would it be about?
Probably some kind of fantasy novel.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.